So I'm kind of thinking, I feel like when I get done with skating and try to take any pictures, I just look old. So I think probably the weather and the wind in my face has something to do with that. But it kind of annoys me. But I was really excited by this and wanted to show it because that doesn't happen every day. I might have showed it before, to be honest. It's so stupid. It's literally just how well my pants match my skates. It's the little things, y'all. And of course, yeah, I would choose the time when everybody is leaving the baseball diamonds to do it, so there's like a line of people. But that's alright. We're gonna do it anyway. So, yeah. So, check these bad boys out. I got these. And then, I got my skates. That I bought them mismatched, and I loved the fact that I could do that. And it makes me very happy that I have mismatched skates. And I just found some real cool rocks that I'm taking with me since I'm sitting outside the car to do this. So, yeah. But I just wanted to share that ridiculousness. So, pause. So, yeah, anyway, I feel like I probably was excited enough to share that before because that is literally how I am. I like to say I'm my own art project, and that is exactly it. Yeah, a lot of thought went into the skates, to be honest, with the, which mismatched way I wanted to go, because I think they had the 3 different colors, the turquoise-ish color, orange, and purple. So it's like, okay, which way to mismatch? And I went with orange and purple, obviously. And I think the reason I did that was because the turquoise, they had, it had something where there's like more, it would be more heavily turquoise than the orange and purple split. And I don't remember how it worked out exactly. I think just like the way the mismatched skate, the lace it came with or whatever. I don't know, it was something silly. Changed the, I don't remember if I changed the toe stops on them or not. Oh, that's what it was, the toe stop. That is obviously horrendous. That was why I went with the orange and purple, because they didn't have different colors in the toe stops. Now, mind you, I could have probably bought them that way, but obviously these are well worn and well over 1,000 miles at this point in time, I think. But yeah, because the toe stops were only in that color, I had to go with the orange and purple. Because, otherwise it would have been more heavily weighted one color-wise, and I don't want to do that, so. But yeah, it matches the pants perfect, so I was so excited by it. Anyway, this is the stupidness that is my life. While I was skating, I figured out some point in the last few months that over here at the elementary school, I'm not going to show you where I'm at, but like where my car is parked is kind of like this, it's kind of furthest away from the building, but in the lot furthest away from the building, but really that corner and this corner, it's just closer to a door, to be honest. But I figured out that if I go out this lot around the little path up by the school for like, it's not regular drop off and pick up, but like if you show up with your kid late and have to go in with them, there's a few parking spots up by the front of the building. So if I skate that path and then go back to the bus lot and go all the way around the bus lot to the sign that says bus parking only between 7:30 and 4:30, turn around there and come all the way back out the bus lot, go in the other entrance of the school lot. Then by the time I hit the end of the path that goes in right up in front of the school, if I do that twice, it gets me to a mile. That's really complicated when I'm not showing it at all. But I did not discover that until just in the past few weeks. So I've been really excited by that one, because it gets me to my miles quicker. Because before I would just like make laps around the bus lot and then occasionally throw in and around this section and whatnot, and then it's like, well, shit, this is a way easier way to get a mile in. So yeah, super stoked on that one. And if I'm going to push for another 21 miles one of these days before the end of May, then that's useful information to have. Because I usually just wing it, and however far I skate is however far I skate. I wasn't sure how far I was gonna go today. Oh, excuse me. But like I knew I wanted to skate because this is supposed to be the last nice day before like 3 or 4 days of like stormy weather. So I definitely wanted to get a skate in while it was nice. And so I did. But then also, I don't remember what the also was. Oh, I just wasn't feeling like it. So it's like, all right, we're going to skate anyway, because I don't want to completely fall off on that one. And so I did. I got my skate in, and since I won't be able to do it for a few more days, and I'm not near as consistent as I was when I first started, because there for a while I was like super obsessive about getting over here and skating as much as possible. And this time around, like, okay, before, as long as it was like above freezing, then I was happy. But now it's like, 40 degrees. Do I really want to skate then? If I'm not feeling it, then I might not, But today is like, I think the high today was 54. So it's like I wasn't hugely feeling it, but at the same time, it's nice, and I wanted to do it before I can't do it because of weather. So I sucked it up and came over here. But then, because I was still kind of iffy, it's like, well, okay, so how far do I want to go? I don't know. So obviously I just did that little path, like, I think it ended up being 8 times to get my 4 miles in. Yeah. And still went a little ways over because I had to come back to the car, obviously. But, yeah. So I did 3, and I was debating on cutting it at 3. And then I was like, but I could go to 5. It's only like 20 minutes longer. But I was kind of feeling wishy-washy about that. But I'd already gotten like 3.5 in at that point. And then the last time I went to turn around at the stop sign, when I looked up at the light pole, the pole that I was at had a number 4 on it. It was like, you're right, I'm going to finish it at 4 today. That's obviously that 4 has always been there because, that's how they label them in case there's any kind of issue that they need people to come out to or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know how many times I've gone past that same number on that pole and looked at it, and it hasn't meant anything to me other than, hey, that's pole number 4. If you're trying to, I don't know, tell the school there's a problem out there or something, or whatever. But today it was just, yeah, you're right, I'm going to be done at 4. At 4 miles. So, yeah. it adjusts. It becomes messages when you need it as a message. And it wasn't the next pole, which was 5, but it happened to be at 4. So 4 was where we called it. And luckily that was like halfway through the final lap of doing that. That was kind of funny because I got back to the car and derailed. Was going back into my app to see, or to shut it off and say I was done, and it was at 4.11 miles, because I had to get back to the car. But also when I caught it, like I opened the app and it was like 4321 was the time, 43 minutes and 21 seconds, and I caught it right as it clicked off of that. So yeah, good times with numbers. Man, you'd think I did something. I'm like hella tired right now. Yesterday, I did not do the one big task that I had lined up to do. However, I did do a big task that I finally got it out of the way. So I just replaced one with a different one. I had talked about cleaning off my dresser and that one shelf over by my window. And that was the day's task. And then it's like, no, I think I'm gonna... Okay, it wasn't even no. It was my niece called to say she was in the driveway because her parents took her to get all her hair cut off. It's short. And the reason it is short, because I guess at the last parent-teacher conference, the teachers were asking if they could put her hair or pull her hair back because it was always in her face all the time. And since she has been notoriously bad about that, we've all worked with her, and the times anybody has been able to talk her into letting them pull her hair back, it's not too far down the line where she's like ripping it out because she can't stand it being up. So since she couldn't get it out of her face and leave it out of her face, her parents made her cut it off. So she was not happy, but at the same time, is what it is. So maybe she'll get used to having people see her face. No, I used to hide behind my hair a lot too. But yeah, that is a big change when you go short, and especially that short. Because I think when I was a senior in undergrad, I finally went the shortest that I had ever gone, and that was like chin length. And it freaked me out because I didn't realize how bad I was about hiding behind my hair until I didn't have hair to hide behind. And it's like, oh shit. But then after I had that experience, and of course I let it grow back out. But then when it came back around, I had my hair grown out, and then there was another serious breakup, and I cut it all off because, that's what you do when there's a breakup. Do something drastic to change it and to shift the energy, right? So the breakup with the dude that I thought I was going to marry, I went chin length again. But then I started thinking about joining the military because I always knew that, like, for some reason I was supposed to go in the military. Didn't really matter which branch so much. I just knew that military at some point was on my path. So I went in as a chaplain assistant because, I knew seminary was also on my path. And I figured if I went as a chaplain assistant, then that would give me time with an actual chaplain to see if Army chaplaincy was something that I wanted to do. And it was not. But it still gave me some experience on both ends, right? So when I was in basic training, and I went in with my hair chin length, My hair is really thick, so I got yelled at all the fucking time because my hair was too it was too short to go back in a ponytail, mainly because it was so thick, as much as anything, but it was too long to look decent because it's so thick if I did anything. Like, we went out and, sweating in the field, and then it does whatever the fuck it wants to, and it was just a whole ordeal, and I was getting yelled at all the time. And so by the end of basic training, I got to a point where it's like I thought back to that time where I cut all my hair off and then how it had grown back, and it was just fine. And I was like, you know what? It's just hair. It'll grow back. And I went to the barbershop one weekend and had them just hack it. And then I didn't get yelled at about my hair as much anymore. It was kind of funny, though, because, well, I mean, it was the barbershop and he didn't do shit for my hair. However, since it was the only place I had, the only option I had to do that, it did what I needed it to at the time, which was get people off my back. And it was kind of funny because I think it actually commanded a lot of respect from the female drill sergeants that had been on me about my hair all the time, because there were like 3 or 4 of them that were like nonstop. Every time they saw me, they were bitching at me about my hair. And so I was just like, okay, fuck it. Like, cut it all off. And of course, it's like, they left it like real long on top. But, I mean, at least went in my hat, so there was that. But, I mean, it was a hot mess. And when the drill sergeant saw me next, they're just kind of like taken aback because I actually did the thing. And I got so sick of hearing about my hair that I just hacked it off. And they're like, one of them was like, he cut your shit short. And then it was really funny because, like, within a week, she had cut all her hair off too. And there was another one that had cut hers shorter. And it's like, but yeah. It's like I finally went from being bitched at all the time to commanding a little bit of a respect for having done the thing that I don't think they thought I would do. But I was really sick of hearing about it. And at that point, it was just like, you know what? It'll fucking grow back and I don't give a shit. And then when Family Day came around, and, we had like some kind of ceremony thing before the final graduation. And it was like the day before graduation. So the Family Day, we were able to go out with our families and, do whatever off the post or whatever. And, the first thing I had my parents take me to do was go to Great Clips and like get it cut by somebody who knew how to cut women's hair. And then it was good. And it was kind of pixie-ish at that point. But then even then, that like when it grows back, so I went really super short and basic, and then when I was growing it out, and then met my ex-husband, and, I had long hair most of the time we were together, and I think it was at least shoulder length, but at one point I was growing it out more than that. And after I finally left him the last time, the first thing I did was just hack it all off again. And then I just went like real short, back to the pixie-ish length. And my ex, he had this nice little thing that he would do. And see, I was always under the impression with him that he was so firmly closeted he would never come out. And part of my reasoning for this was, if he got mad at me for anything, then he would come at me and try to accuse me of being gay and all this stuff. It's like, since that was always the go-to, it's like, there must be something with him on that end, because he is trying to use that to make me act a certain way or whatever. I don't know. But the last several months we were together, when I went back there for that last hurrah of the last ditch effort to see if it was going to work or not, and I knew it wasn't going to, but at the same time, I had to feel like I was actually giving it a true opportunity. And he kept going to that idea. And so when I finally left him for good, I was like, fuck it, he can believe that. And I cut all my hair off, had a faux hawk for a while. It's like, he wants to think that, he absolutely can. But if it at least keeps him away from me, then hey, I consider that a win. You know, like I've talked about before, I'm perfectly okay with using my hair as douche deterrent. And, you know, I've talked about like the green. I think the green is over here, like the electric lizard plus. So I have this one color that's called electric lizard, and okay, it's probably like this green. And we had so many odds and ends this last time around. Like literally all the colors we've been using have a few mixes in it, because there were a bunch that didn't have enough to do like more than 1 or 2 sections, which is not very conducive for the way we do my hair. Just as far as like, my mom likes to kind of go everywhere and have a little bit everywhere on that end. But we didn't have enough to really do more than like 1 or 2 sections of some of the colors. So it was like, all right, how can we combine? So I combined a bunch of them and got rid of a bunch of them. But it's like, I mean, it's still kind of mainly that electric lizard kind of color, but a little bit deeper. I think we added, it was electric lizard, the manic panic color, and we added this punky brand, was it Lucky or something, or no, Alpine, Lucky's the brand, Alpine something. But it made it go further. We still have some left, and we've done my hair twice since we mixed it that way, so but it needs it again. Okay, so we're not bleaching it this next time around. So that'll do that again. But after I get some more root length and go to bleach the roots again, we will go that far and try to knock that out, because that looks like shit. Not bad enough for me to go out of my way to fix right the second or anything, but when it comes back around, we're gonna fix it. You know, but not the next time. We'll just do it like a couple times away, so I have reason to bleach the roots again. I don't like rushing into anything, so I was gonna do a video at home, and then kind of like I did yesterday, but then decided not to. I got distracted with watching a White Feather Tarot video, to be honest, and you know, nobody was at home, so I would have been fine with doing it, but then at the same time I was like, yeah, I knew I wanted to skate, so I figured I'll just do it after I skate. That's usually a good time, other than the fact that I apparently like look old in pictures right after I skate. So maybe I'll take a couple pictures after I'm done with the video, and hopefully something turns out a lot better. Or yeah, I just hit the button every now and then and maybe something will turn out worthwhile while I'm doing the video. Yeah, but I hung up not quite everything, but almost everything. I finally got a hammer, and that was where I was going with that when I wandered down the hair rabbit hole instead. Since Gracie got there and had her hair cut, you know, and we all went out to see her. They didn't bring her in. They said something about because it was cold and her hair wasn't completely dry, but then they just sat there with the windows down and the like wind was blowing into the car. So she was talking about being cold the whole time. It's like, well, I bet that wouldn't have been as cold as if you had just walked from the car to the house where the fireplace was on, because it was cold yesterday. Nope, before I get there, as we were walking by the truck, I said to my dad, do you have a hammer close in this thing? I said, because I don't know where mine's at and I really want to get some stuff hung up. So I remembered the point that I wandered down the hair path for. But anyway, I said we don't need to worry about it when we're going to see Gracie, but when we're coming back, if you have one close, that would be spectacular and I could get this stuff hung up. So I got, of course, as we were walking into the house, he forgot until I said it again. And he's like, oh yeah. And he had to dig around. He's got like two toolboxes in there, but then he's got this cover on it. So it's like, it makes them really hard to access. But then he's got like these boxes that they put like the plastic containers of like grapes and whatnot in at Sam's, and he's got like 3 of those that just have a bunch of tools in the back of his truck, so he can just pull them out for the stuff that he needs most often. It's like, well, that's one way of doing it, I guess, but not glorious by any means. But anyway, I finally got the hammer, finally got shit hung up. Not all of it, but the majority of the stuff that was really bothering me and I wanted to get hung up. And the way, okay, so the bear frame is really big and thick, and it like, the edge frame of it comes out, and then there's like this piece that's like diagonal holding the outside frame to the section that has the glass and the picture in it. And I painted all that stuff, but I was thinking because it was so bulky, it needed to go a little higher than the other thing I was going to hang with it. But then after I just hung there were 4 things: the bear with the bear poster, and then the frame that I have with a bunch of pictures of it's got Tyler in it, it's got my dad's parents, and a bunch of dogs that we have lost. Oh, and my great grandparents. The deaths that really were traumatic for me in some kind of way, or meant some, in the past few years, have meant more for me. I have like my bunch of pictures for those people. And I am not adding my mom's dad to that by any means. He was like he was the head narcissistic element in a toxic family system, and I feel no need of having him mess up my the deaths that mattered with the one that would never fucking die. We spent all these years mourning his death, but then he never died because he was literally sucking the life out of everybody else. And yeah, so he doesn't deserve a place in that freaking memorial thing. Screw him. But anyway, that frame, I felt like it needed to go under the other picture until I hung the other picture, and it's like, oh, I should have done this the opposite way and put the little memorial thing over top of the bear. And then I had the 2 pictures on the side. There's the 8x10s. One's the tiger picture that I took, and the other is the elephant picture that I took, all from the zoo. Same trip, the October 2023 trip, which was after I committed my love and career life to the universe and was shown the twin flames and all that stuff. And then I go to the zoo and have this experience where it feels like he's literally right there with me the whole day, even though I've never met him. And then, like everything was working out for pictures that day. And it's like, I got a bunch of great pictures of like different animals, and the tigress, I was all about that one because of course tigers have proven to be very important for the connection as well. And, the biggest piece of that is, like the animal apothecary deck talks about tiger representing boundaries, because tiger doesn't even entertain whether she should or not entertain something that toxic in her environment. She just chooses her peace and doesn't let it in, right? That kind of thing. So it's like, because of my toxic family situation, tiger has been very important on this whole path, because it's the constant reminder of making sure I set the boundaries, and then of course it was a kind of a triggering thing to say, hey, do this. But then there's like all these other elements where it's come in, like the importance of boundaries had come in as well, and like I talked about the rocks, the color black, because frequency of color as means of protection and all that. So yeah, this was like there were a bunch of things right around that time. But that zoo trip, I got that awesome picture of the tigress looking at me. It's like she's trying to talk to me, kind of a thing, so I got an 8x10 of that. And then like the elephant picture that I took, it was kind of farther back, and I got their waterfall in it, because I love me a good waterfall, y'all. And yeah, like when I took the picture, I thought it was going to be garbage because it looked really hazy. But then when I went back into it and looked at it, it's like, holy shit, this looks like a poster. So I was all stoked with that one. And then I ended up getting an 8x10 of that one as well. So I got those two on either side of these bigger two. And it's like, yep, definitely should have hung the bear closer to the headboard since it feels heavier. But then I just started messing around with other stuff, and like I hung a bunch of stuff up in that or on those two walls. I was like, nope, this works. I found other ways to balance it out. And there's a few things that I would have shifted if, I had thought about it differently, or taken certain things into consideration as I was doing it, or even had everything all together all at once to know what I had to hang and where I was going to hang things, and that was the bigger thing, because once I started looking, it's like, oh crap, I also have these things. Oh, I also have these things. So yeah, but it all worked out, and I got shit hung up, so I'm super happy with that. And it was something productive. So even though I didn't get the dresser and the shelf cleaned off yet, which of course part of that is that one shelf, there's all the shit in front of it that I have to move to get to it, so that's also a downfall. However, I got more horror movies to watch while I'm messing around in there. I watched Jigsaw while I was hanging the pictures. And then it's like, I know that set had 8 movies in it. And then when I went back, I saw Saw 10. It's like, well, obviously I need that one. But then while I came over here and started skating, it's like, wait a second, I need to figure out what the Saw 9 situation is. And apparently it's a movie called Spiral. And, well, if I would have known that when I was at the library, I would have looked for it. But I did not know that. I wonder what. No, it doesn't do that. Okay, it is 6 o'clock. Well, actually, it's 5:45. I might just run back to the library and see if they do have it now that I know what it is. Because I think they close at 7 today. And why wouldn't I get another movie? Even though I'm pretty confident I could watch 10 and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Since the thing said the other one came before it, maybe I'll just give it a shot. I don't know. I'm pretty sure I don't have like everything in order anyway. Like, I think I've seen Evil Dead, but then over there, the only one I saw today was Evil Dead Rise, and I don't know where that falls in. I don't know how many of those there are. I know I watched one of them with my ex, but I don't really, I was only half watching because back in the X days, it was still kind of more big into the church bullshit and anti the horror movie stuff just because church bullshit. But then when I realized the church bullshit was very much why I was stuck with my ex and having a hard time getting out of a toxic connection, then I had no problem walking away from church, and I have not been back to church since I left Alabama. I have been in a church a couple different times for my cousin's bridal shower and then her baby shower, because my aunt and uncle are big into their church, so they rent this or borrow the space for those kind of things. And we've had other parties there. I think my sister-in-law's baby shower was there too. But yeah, if it's not, I'm not going for church-related bullshit. Screw all that. I'm done with those days. Yeah. But I still got to figure out, like, there was a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I don't know how many there are of those. I just need to do some research and figure out what all there is, and then, like, next time I go to the other library that's, like, closer to Greenfield, then, you know, they have a much bigger selection anyway than this one does. And, you know, some of it they don't have a whole lot over here. I mean, they do have a bunch of movies, but if I am just looking at the titles and not knowing what I'm going for, I don't know. It's not necessarily super productive because you can't see the fronts of them unless you're pulling them out as you go, which I do that on some, but yeah. They did, however, have that Thanksgiving movie that I talked about the other day that I have, my sister-in-law and I watched the preview when, I was out with my mom. She wanted to run that errand the other day and then wanted to drop in and ninja my brother and his family. He likes to say ninja because she shows up without saying anything about coming over or seeing if it's a good time or anything. She just shows up, so they have to deal with her. And it's like, yeah, you know, I've talked about that on here too. It's like the other day when that whole thing came up, she's like, I want to go to your brother's house and see Gracie. It's like, are you going to call? No, I'm not. It's like, so you're not even going to call to see if they're even home or anything like that. And I looked at the garage door opener because I have their garage door opener in here, because I've been checking on their dogs periodically. It's like, did you want to come along just because of that, and, you know, because you wanted to drop in on them? She said no. She said I needed to take that stuff back to UPS so I could get my money back. It's like, okay. But then, yeah, it was conveniently, it's like, all right, whatever. So we, as we were driving back this way, because our road is a mile ahead of their road, so we were getting close, and it's like, I will not do that to my brother. But then I was thinking about, it's like, should I text? I can't text, I'm driving, you know, so it's like, that was the whole thing. So it's like, I'm not doing that to my brother. And I just picked up the phone and called him. It's like, what are you doing? he had like just dozed off or something in his chair. And it's like, well, I have mom in the car and she wants to come visit Gracie. It's like, okay. But it's like, yeah, I wasn't trying to ninja him. So we called first, we went over there, it was fine, you know, but then I didn't know how long she was going to be planted because it'd been so long since she's seen Gracie, because, well, she was like busy giving her father all of her life force energy every time he was in the hospital, and she was staying all night in the hospital for like big stretches of time, like the entire time he was in the hospital. Anytime he was in the hospital, she was there every single minute of it. And she only went home when, we got to the other rehab place. The first night my aunt stayed with him at the rehab facility. The next night, because he was apparently like having some kind of meltdown when they got moved over there, and so they did it just because it was a high stress thing. And the next night when it came back up, I think my mom and her sisters were both there. The only reason it became okay for anyone to not stay with him at the rehab hospital was because my uncle looked at him and said, "Why do you need a babysitter?" And then it was like, oh, well, I guess I don't. So then the entire time he stayed at that rehab hospital, nobody had to stay with him. We were still there like almost daily. I mean, I wasn't on that one because when he got switched over there, I talked about how I had that morning I woke up and I was like crying and realized, I was basically having a conversation with him, and I was like, I have spent 33 years of my life mourning your death, and you're not dead yet. I will not do it any longer. And so I stopped, and I stopped going there and participating in the going to visit him and all that bullshit. It's like, fuck that nonsense, Then I became increasingly unreliable with the family because I wasn't doing my job of giving him all my life force energy, because fuck him. So yeah. Oh, so I will say there's some weird dynamics these days because I stopped being available all the time. And, my mom's had moments where she's wanted me to go help her with something with my grandma, and I just don't. Like the cleaning. It's like, okay, everybody's expected to go over to grandma's house because we're going to do this big cleaning work because she's getting all new paint and, new paint in most of the rooms, but new carpet in every room. But everybody needs to help. And, Mom was going to get donuts because yay raw, and Beth was going to get the beverages because woo. And she was like, we're going to start at 9 o'clock. And when she told me it was the night before, and, I just had that, my intuitive voice just popped in and says, no is a complete sentence. And I was like, because I was really like kind of going back and forth on this whole thing. But then I had that thought pop into my head. It's like, that's true. And then the next morning, it's like, I was awake at like 8 o'clock, and it's like, I don't want to go. And like I was still feeling all bad and feeling weird and expecting that somebody was going to check in on me and see if I was going or whatever. And that never happened. And then as I was getting ready for the day, I was like, I want breakfast. So I said, fuck it. And I loaded all the dogs up in the car, Peppy included, and we went over to Hardee's, and I got biscuits and gravy and hash browns, and we pulled over in the parking lot across the street because their parking lot was full, and I had my biscuit and gravy, and I shared hash browns with a little bit of gravy with the dogs, and they loved that, and Ziva stole more. But then when I was on the way back home and I was thinking about this whole thing, I was going around and around about how it literally wouldn't have mattered. It's like if I went over there, then I was doing my obligation of, being useful to the family. But if they asked me why I wasn't there and I said, because you didn't ask, then they would just ask to appease me, but then I would still be expected to do the thing. So it's like, you can't win in that scenario. So I was having this conversation with myself about literally the only way to win is not to play the game, and so I focused on my piece. But as I'm having this conversation and, you know, I'm driving back home, and then that was the day I saw the eagle hanging out in the field and got a couple pictures of it. It's like, hey, that is a badass way to tell me I'm on the right path. I like this. You know, so then, you know, it happened again the next week. But I think it was, I don't remember how it came up then, but it was another time where I just blew it off, and everybody survived without me. But since then, I think they figured out that I'm not really reliable when they demand something of me anymore. I'm not readily available like I used to be. So it's like, okay. I like it now that I have more peace. But then something came up yesterday or the day before, and I don't even remember what it was. I think part of it was with my cousin has to have surgery on his leg because he broke his fibula. I think that's what he broke. And dislocated his ankle. And he has to have surgery on Friday. So my mom's talking about that. She's talking about going with my aunt, going to sit with my aunt while he's in surgery, because her husband can't be there because he has to work that day. And apparently it's too short notice to sit out because his kid is having surgery. I mean, his kid is like 27. I think maybe he'll be 27. No, he was born in 98, whatever that makes him. His birthday's next month. Or, no, his birthday's at the end of this month now, because it is April Fool's Day. So, yeah. But there was something with that whole scenario that just came up, and it's like, I wasn't even asked if I wanted to go this time. It's like, they just left me out of it. They're planning their own thing anyway. It's like, cool. To know what that felt like, that was kind of kind of nice. Leave me alone, people. I'm okay with that. I was watching a Dr. Ramani video earlier where she was talking about what happens to the scapegoat or the family scapegoat when they become an adult. And it was talking about you know, the good or bad that can end up with that. And like, of course, on the negative end, it's like likely to end up in other toxic relationships because they've never had any kind of healthy relationships to know. Kind of looks like it's gonna rain. To know what a healthy connection is supposed to look like. So prone to the toxic ones. It's like, well, I already did that. I had the big one, the big toxic one that when I finally got out of, then it was like, okay, now how did I get here? And let's never do this again. So, yeah, so I lived that experience, but then she was talking about how if they are able to go through therapy and really work on the healing process, then it can be, you know, they can become like advocates for others and be really, you know, if they are become really good with the boundary thing, you know, that I have been talking about a lot on this channel. Yep. That's even today, because that's why I was talking about the tiger. But yeah, but like, if you can, the different positive ways that you can exist after getting out of one of these one of these connections or whatever. You know, there were actually a couple videos that I watched that were the same kind of topic. They were from 3 years ago, but that's all right. You know, and it's funny because when I got back from Alabama and I first started going back to the library, I don't know that I was specifically looking for anything in particular, but I actually at that time came across Dr. Ramani's book. She had it's called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And I was talking about surviving narcissistic relationships and all that stuff. And of course, that was my my marriage situation, so it seemed completely relevant. But then it was also talking about how you got there in the first place. And typically that's because of toxic family relationships from growing up. It's like, it was one of those things, it's like where I could receive the information, but I wasn't fully ready to deal with the information. So it's like, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, put a little flag, like one of those little post-it flag things, we're going to mark this spot and then come back to this when we're ready for it. And, for a while I followed her, or I subscribed to her channel because it was incredibly useful information, incredibly relevant to what I was going through. But at the same time, when it came to like the family stuff, I wasn't really ready to receive how toxic my family was and like to really process through that and understand it. So yeah, like I just I wasn't subscribed very long, because then of course, once you start watching that stuff, then the algorithm sends you all that stuff to make sure you have all the stuff you want to stay entertained with and focused on, if it'll keep you there longer. It's like, I'm not trying to bring more of that in my life by any means. I'm trying to be done with it when I'm done with it. And I don't only want to see that stuff on my freaking YouTube stuff. In fact, give me more music and like tarot readings even. It's like that kind of stuff. We're good there. I'll spend plenty of time, or I'll waste plenty of time on YouTube for like the tarot readings or music. But and obviously I've gone back to checking it out now, because now that I have set some solid boundaries and I'm trying to navigate through some of the stuff with my family, now it's more helpful to, and I don't even know how. I think that the universe just was like, here, you're ready for this now. So something shows up across my news feed and it's like, okay, that's relevant, I think. So I'll just go ahead and think about that one for a while. So yeah. And of course now I send things to my brother periodically too. But yeah, like she had a couple of videos that I watched this morning, and I commented on them, and because that's one of those things I feel like that's partly how I'm supposed to build my channel, is through just commenting on other people's things, and whoever's there for that thing might happen across my stuff eventually, that way. But yeah, so I was commenting, and I talked about, one thing she had talked about was setting, at least very strong boundaries, if not cutting them off altogether. And I mentioned how, like, my brother is at this point now where it's like, I started this journey and I started talking to him about it, because it's all in using the voice, calling out the bullshit. But once I started setting my boundaries and realizing how things were shifting just from me pulling back, and then, I shared that stuff with my brother, and then he started realizing where it was coming in at. And it's like, the more we focused on our own healing, he's at the point now where he's gonna move here in 2.5 weeks to Oklahoma, and then while they offered to let me go that way with them, that's not my opportunity, right? That's my the stuff that came up 2 days before before he found out that, or before he told me that Jen had taken the job in Oklahoma. The stuff that had come up before then was specifically to show me, if I had, if that intuitive voice said, go to the cemetery, to walk the dogs and not go to the park, then when you go to the park, there's potentially something that you could have avoided by listening to the voice. And, of course, that time it was, then there's a little old lady at the park walking her dog off the leash. And it's like, big pet peeve, y'all. Because my dogs are not well behaved, and I know this, but at least they're confined to the damn leash and not going to go way over there and get in somebody else's business. But if your dog, I don't care how friendly it is, comes over and gets in my dog's business because it's off the leash, that's a whole fucking ordeal. And I have a problem with that, right? So through that experience, it's like, clearly we need to use the intuitive voice to follow it when it says to do the things, right? And then the next day, what came up was I had an appointment with Annie for a reading, and I wanted to go walk the dogs before I went to the appointment. So I did. And I, cut myself shorter than I wanted to do because it's like, man, I'm pushing it on time. And usually it takes me like 45 minutes to get over there and all this stuff. And then I was stressing out on the way, and it's like, I kept trying to bring myself back. It's like, no, we cannot be stressed out about this because universe can expand and shrink time based on how I am freaking out or not freaking out about it, right? So if I'm able to keep myself calm and collected, it'll all work out. But if I'm not, then it's going to be like tight, right? So then I was like, nope, this is fine. Then I just started thinking of some like odds and ends, and it was like, well, okay, so I want to get there at least with enough time to get in, check in, and be able to do all that. Then, as I was driving a little further, it's like, I really have to pee. And I had to stop and get gas that day, but, I didn't fill up the tank, even though that voice said I could. I was just like, no, I don't want to do it, because, I was still on the verge of stressing. I was trying very hard not to stress, but there was still that little bit of me that was kind of stressing, and it's like, okay, we're trying not to do this, right? So I stopped and I put like $20 in the gas tank, and then was kind of thinking that I had to pee, but it's like, I think I could probably make it through the reading before and be fine. But then, I pull out of the gas station, and I have this inclination to turn off before I normally would have. And then as I was thinking, it's like, then I have to pee even worse than I did a little bit ago. And then it's like, okay, so it would be really nice if I could get there with enough time to, breathe and be okay, but then also have the chance to use the bathroom before I go into the reading. And what happened was, it's like, I wasn't sure if that road went all the way through. So I would every time I was approaching a stop or a roundabout, it's like checking in. It's like, are we going straight or are we turning off? It's like, nope, keep going. It's like, okay. So it's like, just keep checking in with myself and figuring it out. And what happened was I found a new way to get to class because it took me like a half hour to get there. And I got there not only did I get there early, I had enough time to go to the bathroom and look around and kill time in the store looking around beforehand. So I was like, okay. So all I got to do is check in with that voice from time to time, right? And damnedest thing, it just worked out. But then the next day, when my brother called and told me that Jen had taken a job in Oklahoma, he's like, I just immediately was like, that's not my opportunity. It's like, first off, there's literally nothing in Oklahoma for me, except there would be like my brother's family, and they are taking 2 of my jobs with them, because of course respite care with Gracie is one of them, and then the other one was I dog sit for them a bunch. So it's like 2 of my jobs are going, but it's like, that's not my opportunity. And like nothing about Oklahoma is a pull to me. And yet, I've talked about the various ways that Philadelphia has kept popping up here lately. And I, on the one hand, it's like I feel like I've had another lifetime there in a way. And it's like, I don't know how, I don't know when, but I still feel like that's where I'm going to end up. But going back to like that video, she was talking about a lot of times the best thing to do for the people who have been the scapegoated ones is, if they can get through therapy and all these things, then, sometimes the best option might be just cutting away completely and cutting all ties. It's like, I feel like I'm on the verge of being there. Like, there are moments where I am like, fuck these people, let me out of this place, and never have anything to do with them again. And then there's other times where all my Cancer placements in the 4th house with the home and family are like, my Cancer placements are in the 12th house, not the 4th house. But the 4th house is, Cancer is the ruler of the 4th house. So because it's connected to home and family, then of course, then I start feeling wishy-washy about it again. And it's like, well, do I really have to say bye forever? And honestly, I think part of what I'm going to find when my brother's family gets away a little bit, I'm sure it's going to keep going, and there will probably be things that make me realize that I really don't want to be connected to them anymore. And like, because it's always just the little stupid shit. Yesterday I got sidetracked with hanging the pictures, and I did not have enough nails because not everything had made it up on the walls from before. Some things I could hang with push pins, but even that, I didn't have a whole lot of those. Well, okay, scratch that. I have a little box of both push pins and nails that I got specifically to hang things, but somewhere in the shuffling of moving stuff around and switching my office and bedroom around, I don't know where those are. So I needed more nails than I had. So what I did was, my dad, being Mr. Fix-It, catch-all kind of thing, he shows up with like random nails and screws for like everything, and then he just has a corner in his desk drawer that just has a bunch of nails and screws in it, and then there's like a bucket that has a bunch of nails and screws in it. So I was going through these things, right? And then my mom got all involved in the task too, because she knew we had like she had one of those boxes of nails somewhere, and of course they're all into being helpful and, being the savior of the day kind of a thing, where they can. And my mom found a container that just had push pins in it. And then, of course, she was looking at my dad's desk because she got all into wanting to be the hero of the moment, right? So she's looking for things for me, and it becomes this whole ordeal. Enter the mindset of the this for that, right? Now she did something for me, now I owe her something, right, of my time and energy. So when I go back into the room later, then I suddenly get put on this mission out to the freezer because she helped me with something, so I have to help her now, because that's how this works. It's never just, like, love is not for love's sake in that house. It is specifically, I'm doing this, now you owe me something. That's literally all it ever is. But because I occasionally get pulled right back in and miss that at the moment, these are the things that the universe is showing me that I still have to work on, right? So I went, and I think I was supposed to look for garlic bread or something, see if we had any garlic bread in the freezer. And I go out there. As I'm going out there, I think she asked me if I knew if we had any, and I said no, but then I went out there to look, and in the like 30 seconds where we're having this kind of exchange, I think I said like 2 or 3 things. Every single thing my dad mocked me on. And it's like, here we are again, right back to this point, because, my brother calls him the knight in creaky armor, because he shows up when my brother and I have somehow pissed our mom off, and he's got to swoop in and play the hero kind of a thing. So in that scenario, I don't think it was like, because she helped me out with finding the nails, and then there was this other stuff, and then he's trying to pull me back into the toxic energy shit with mocking me and getting me all pissed off and pulling my energy back down. So yeah, fucking toxic family, y'all. I'm so ready to be done with them. I am. But like I said, I think a big part of me still being there after my brother is gone, because my brother won't be a reprieve for me anymore, because he's been, just the fact that he's been local. I've talked on here about how we've gone back and forth about who's the bigger disappointment in the family. And, one day it's 1 minute it's him, 1 minute it's me. And where we really saw that was when my grandfather was in the hospital. Neither one of us gave a shit, and we're trying to get there to appease my mom, like she thought we needed to be there all the time, like she was. And it's like, so then we were just going back and forth on who's the bigger disappointment. And I did a couple videos talking about that when I renamed my channel to The Family Disappointment. And yeah, I don't remember all of the details on that now, but it's just like that is a constant back and forth. And, the realization that it's always kind of been like that. So when I was watching the Dr. Ramani video, and she's talking about, there's the scapegoat, it's like, my brother's not been the scapegoat, but at the same time, he wasn't the golden child per se. He was still every bit abused by this toxic family system as I was. Just, it looked slightly different. Like, and I think probably because it's a multi-generational thing, and he's my mom's favorite, absolutely, and because of that, he was also, well, not because of that, but he was also my grandparents' favorite, my mom's parents, because he was into sports, so he had something in common with them, so they liked him because he had something in common with them. That was the common ground piece, right? So he's acceptable in that kind of way. But I was into music, so I wasn't acceptable. And, I was, we always knew that he was the favorite and I was not, but he knew it all also. And with his empathicness, he wasn't okay with it, because he could see that I was getting shat upon, time and again. And he was, mind you, my mom told him when she was pregnant with me that one of his most important jobs was to take care of his baby sister. So on that end, he took that very seriously. But at the same time, it's that Capricorn piece where he, she also kind of played in on making him have this like excessive responsibility at a really early age. And, that became a huge source of anxiety for him as well. So when I was leaving comments on the two different videos, it's like, on the one hand, it's like he wasn't the golden child, but he was definitely preferred, and he was manipulated differently. And, whereas my mom was living vicariously through me, and then it was becoming dangerous for me to try to do anything else, yet she was still benefiting from all the shit that I was doing. She was still playing on his emotions in a bad way too. And yeah, I don't know, but I think one of the things that the video was talking about was how, there's the scapegoated one. And, I think one thing she was talking about was how it's kind of like this overarching, toxic family thing where even the adjacent people feed into the toxic dynamic. So it'd be like, go with my grandma and how she made that comment back in August about how she was surprised my mom didn't get arrested for child abuse at one point in time. And she was talking specifically about something that had happened when my mom was babysitting with kids that were not my mom's. But when my grandma made that comment, it was just like this ultimate betrayal, because it said she knew there was a problem and she did nothing to try to help it in any kind of way, and actually just played into it. And she's like one of the most toxic people in that family, because she started enabling my grandfather early in her life too, and then she became the number one supply, and then it was just downhill from there, right? So she might not have been the narcissist, but she's extremely toxic. And because of that, raising 3 kids in a toxic system. Okay, so there's various, and I think the middle sister, the one I spend the most time with in the more recent years, I think part of our connection is the fact that she was also scapegoated before me and my brother came around. So yeah, and my mom thinks, I think that's what it was. My mom thinks it's a big joke because Beth doesn't want to, or has never wanted to be around her parents without my mom there too. Now, part of it, I think my mom is a little over dramatic and you can't do anything without me kind of a thing. And there's definitely a piece of that, right? But at the same time, I could absolutely see Beth having an aversion to wanting to be around her parents because they were extremely toxic. And because I know that she was also scapegoated to some degree as well. Because my mom was enabling my toxic grandfather and became more toxic because she was feeding into, trying to win daddy's approval all the time and do all the things that he wanted. So I guess, she had his approval because she was feeding into his toxicity, and therefore she was okay. And then the youngest sister, by the time she came around, he'd accepted that he wasn't going to have any sons, and so that's the best one he got, and she was kind of tomboyish, so she was really big into sports, so therefore she was also acceptable. So then, the middle one's of course she's going to be she's the scapegoated one. Just makes sense, and then once the grandkids came around, it's it doesn't end there, and of course, the connections that my aunts have with their kids, I've talked about those dynamics too. It's there's a whole lot showing toxic family system, but I don't think quite to the degree as the family unit that I came out of, because my brother and I had 12 and 15 years before any of the other grandkids came around, where it was just us, so just that toxicity feeding in on us the whole time, or trying to suck the life out of us kind of a thing and pull us into the bullshit and all that. So, when the other cousins came around, of course, they were a little more removed from the situation, because of the fact my brother and I exist, or back then even, but also because they had different dynamics with them as well. But it's still the toxic system playing out in a different kind of way, I guess. Doesn't look like it. Well, I guess it does. There's a little patch of sunlight over there behind that tree. Anyway, yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I think that a big part of these final days that I'm still around before my opportunity to get out of there comes around, I think, is mainly to help me lock in on the fact that this is never going to change and it's never going to get any better. And just because my Cancerian nature would love for it to get better and to not be an issue that's not helped me anywhere along the line when it just keeps coming back. And it's like, it's not going to be done. There's no way for it to, shy of some like serious therapy for the rest of the family. It is what it is, right? So, yeah, I don't know. But I'm going to wrap it up so I can go home and pee. Because that's the thing now, right? Just in the video, because I kind of have to go to the bathroom, and yep, it's down there and I'm right here. So, yeah. And I don't know of anything else that I'm dying to talk about. I mean, that adjacency piece, like I was thinking about some other things with that. Okay. What I was thinking about was like, okay, so the twin flame stuff, and I've talked about how when I really started, okay, the White Rose Guidance page, she did a reading about messages from your person, kind of a thing, right? And it was after I figured out who he was to me and all this fun stuff, and yet was feeling like it was kind of almost borderline obsessive feeling. And then I watched this reading, which came right after I watched a White Feather tarot reading, where she said, "You're worried this feels obsessive. Your guides are saying it's not, and it has to be this way right now." And then, like, the next one was our White Rose Guidance, and what she said was, she pulled this card that said specifically, "Listen to my music." And it's like, clearly those messages are both for me, because, they are relevant to what I was thinking literally in the moments before I came across them, right? So I turned in on listening to his music more, and what I did was I found out that a lot of, like, he had side projects, and other members of the band had side projects. The band that I heard of him through, they had side projects, so I started following a lot of those, and I had them on like a bunch of my main skating playlists. And what I started to realize is, like, anything they do where they've okay, they have these connections with the other guys in the band. They've learned things from the other guys in the band. It carries through the music, even if it's not a same project with the guys in the band, right? So it becomes like these little adjacent avenues, and yet I can still feel his energy in that space through the connection that he has with the band members from the first group, right? So this is important because as I've been realizing, like, how all these connections are at this higher level, like, okay, I've talked about how I had the dream where I was sitting on a couch with my ex, and 4 of the 5 guys from the other band were on stools behind the couch. So they were like above the level I was at. And that point didn't register immediately, because at first it was just like, I was very aware that they were there, and especially the twin flame. But it was like, I didn't really understand why they were there, because it's like one of the first dreams that I had after I encountered his energy, right? So I've kind of been sitting with that piece too, that, like, they're at this upper level. So, like, I went to a denser space, and basically they're kind of there energetically, they're connected to each other. And because he is who he is to me, and there were like 3 particular 3 guys from that group, like the first group that I found out about, and even that's shuffled since then. But the 3 specific energies were kind of like an activation point for me. And, so then they start showing up in dreams. It's like, what the hell is going on? Because that's weird. But then they're also above me. So what I made the connection of was I had to go to a darker, or to a denser level, and they've been kind of holding tight in the space that they're in, doing the thing that they're here to do, which is their music and whatever else their soul so set them up for on the path, right? And ultimately, it was kind of like the energetic cords between them. It's like a strengthening point to help me up out of the density, kind of a thing, right? So, okay, I did a video the other day where I was talking about like this glass ceiling idea, but I think I deleted that one because I couldn't get my computer to cooperate for several days, and then I got tired of pissing around with it, and I think I just sacrificed it. But like, I've always felt like there was basically this glass ceiling keeping me from being able to get to the life I knew I was meant to have. But it's like, I don't know how to do anything with that. I don't know how to get beyond this. But I think part of it is, that part of where I have these other connections at this higher level that I just haven't met yet, that are ultimately waiting for the right pieces to fall into place, where eventually the door's going to open and I'm going to finally be able to get up there. Whereas my entire life, I haven't been able to touch it because my family has kept me down in like the density, right? And with all this toxic behaviors and all that bullshit, right? So, it came from like the whole twin flame thing was a big activation point for making me start my healing process, because I was talking in the video yesterday, it's like I have to have this thing that's like way up here, as I can, okay, so this thing that I know that is meant for me but is up here and I can't reach it at the moment, but also because all these like negative energies that I've been around have literally tried to keep me from being able to have any kind of dreams for myself. So then I encounter his energy, and it starts me on this healing journey and like processing out some of the density to line me up with the life that I'm meant for. So this is large scale. This is what this generation is here to do, is to clear out the density, right? So some of us have to go a little deeper into the density to really make sense of it, and then in turn heal from it and purge out and release the dense stuff that is not serving anybody any good. Just keeping us from realizing who we are and who we're meant to be while we're here. So like I've had like these little glimpses all throughout my life. Like I was 4 when I knew this path was for me, and that there was like one specific person that I was meant to find. But then everything else in the conditioning kept telling me, no, that's not the case, because it was trying to keep me from being able to move beyond the density and get to the thing. Because literally, if I would have trusted myself and not given into the conditioning and the abuse tactics that kept me from being able to even have a dream for myself, because I just saw it as something that my family would piss all over anytime they got the chance, then if I would have been able to hold tight to that point of there is one specific person I'm looking for in this existence, I never would have gotten sidetracked with all the other bullshit. It's like, I would, if I, oh, there's like this one grand love story that I meant for, okay, I'm all in, right? But it's like, my life kept telling me that I somehow did not deserve it, and, you know, that must be meant for somebody else, not for me. I grew up thinking that I was completely unworthy. Like, the freaking bear picture, for God's sake. You know, I entered this contest because there's no prize attached to it. But because I took this really cool picture, and actually I turned like 3 of them in, all 3 of those ones actually, and the 2 that I liked better weren't the 2 that won, right? But still, had I known that there was any kind of prize package, even though all it was 4 free ride tickets, I wouldn't have even bothered, because I thought I was unworthy of anything that would involve winning. Right? So, I mean, if you believe yourself to be unworthy and capable of winning anything, then the universe will line you up with that shit, because you already feel that way. You know, but that's why there has to be this thing way up here, this whole twin flame thing. It's like, I know this is for me, and there have been moments, like I talked about, how I saw like a story or reel thing that he did on Instagram where he made some comment that had nothing to do with me, and yet I got triggered by it when the only 2 points that were relevant to me were, he said, some girl in Indiana, and it wasn't about me. It was just this random thing that he said about some project he was working on, right? And I had to be triggered by it. It took me to this point of, what if everything I've been moving toward is wrong, and this isn't actually a real thing, and I'm completely out of my mind and all this, and he's just making fun of me, right? And that's the thing. It's like, it wasn't him making fun of me. It was just him making a random statement that had nothing to do with me, other than I'm female and in Indiana. So it's like, that kind of bullshit was enough for me to be momentarily triggered and debate on killing my whole YouTube thing altogether. And it was like, had it not been for the fact that I had over 100 videos at that point in time, I probably would have gone along with, old me would have completely gotten rid of it. It's like, yep, he was making fun of me, so, and it was like, he wasn't, so like, he wasn't at all. But I had to feel like, or I had to be triggered by this point about, what would it be if he was saying that about me? How would that affect me? And it's like, would it completely destroy me? Yeah, I mean, not really, but at the same time, with what I grew up believing about myself, then I would have felt like, kind of, in a way, but yeah, because I had over 100 videos at that point, it was like, this can't be wrong. And not because I have over 100 videos, but literally because this has literally changed everything. And it's all been because I connected to his energy. So, but okay, going back to that adjacent thing, the adjacent connections. So he's had like these music connections that he has. And it's like, I can feel his energy even in stuff that he's not a part of, but because he's worked with these other people in some kind of way, then I can still kind of feel his energy through that, right? So in the same way where he has like these favorable connections, it's like, my connections have been shit. and oh, you think you're better than us? Let us pull you back down into our misery and remind you who you are and how awful you are, and that you don't deserve anything good happening. So it's like, just those adjacent connections. It's like, the ones that I have been surrounded by in my entire life have been shit. But because it's the only existence I've known, this is my family one way or another, it's like, I didn't know positive stuff. Okay, but I didn't know. Okay. I was pretty sure at some points in time that this could not be a healthy thing. Enough so that I remember thinking when I was in high school that if I couldn't heal from this shit, I didn't want to have kids, because I did not want to pass it on to my kids. And, You know, like, that's obviously been a big thing. And here I am, 41, don't have kids at the moment. And because of because of the boundaries that I've set and the healing that I've had to do, to get to this other point, it's like, okay, seeing how my parents have been with Gracie is enough to make me confident that I do not want them around any kids that I have. And, you know, I'm thinking of at least a couple times where just because he was like a miserable, spiteful bastard, he just like smacked Gracie across the face because she yelled at him and he was being a dick. And it's just the energetic connection. It's like, she is like me in a way. Like, I think we both amplify the energy that's already there. So if it's shit energy that you're giving us, you're gonna get it back, you know. And she would always turn what she was receiving against me, and I think that's largely because my mom's always kind of at the deeper levels hated me in a way. Now, she'd never tell you that, she'd never own up to it by any means, but how she's treated me, absolutely, you know. And I think Gracie always picked up on that. And when my mom had my mom didn't have to do or say anything. If she's just sitting there and I was in the room, Gracie would like turn against me. And it's like, literally all I did was walk in the room and it's a problem, you know. But it's like, I think she was just amplifying whatever she was picking up from my mom's energy and putting it out on me, which that's, you know, I've talked about how that's something that I do as well. So yeah, I just go immediately to my uncle when he was going to allow Gracie to carry the corgi puppy without a leash across the yard. You know, this little 8-year-old kid carrying this puppy across the yard, this like heathen puppy across the yard. And, you know, they live real close to the road. And, you know, my mom, my aunt, and I have all been told Gracie repeatedly, do not pick up the puppy, do not carry any of the dogs. Just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know, because we've seen her drop Peppy, who's like 13 now. So it's like, we're not taking any chances, especially that close to the damn road. So my uncle was trying to be like some kind of hero to Gracie or whatever, and let her carry the puppy without a leash outside of the yard. And I saw it and I was just like, don't you dare come out of that fence with that puppy in your arms. I was like, no, you know. And of course, this has been an ongoing battle for some time, right? And of course, my uncle and my dad was over there too. At first, they were just kind of like caught off guard with the fact that I was like right there and like, stop, you know, because this has been something that we had been working on for a long time. And my uncle decides to like, he gets all puffed up and nobody takes him seriously. I've talked about that a few times. And he gets over and to where I'm at, and, you know, he has the puppy and Gracie's over there in front of him and all this stuff. And I don't even remember what exactly he said. Something about, well, I didn't know you were in charge of my dog or whatever. And I just like turned all my like focus on him. I was like, you fucking, I think I called him a fucking asshole or a fucking moron. I don't know. But after I like stepped back, it was like, that seems like it was a bit excessive of a response at that point in time. But then as I sat with it for a little bit, it's like, that goes back to, you know, it was like all the rage that I had saved up, you know, from thinking about, okay, the time when my aunt and uncle were up from Florida before they moved back. And because everybody, it's always Oklahoma. My grandparents lived there. Both aunts lived there for a while. And my brother and sister-in-law have been there and are getting ready to go back. You know, and her brother lives there currently. But yeah, like all these things. But when I sat with that for a while, it's like that goes back to when my mom the shit with my cousin came up, and so my voice was taken away from me because it's like I never had the opportunity to say what had or hadn't happened, and I was just like, everybody just piled on the guilt and shame and made me feel like I'd done something really wrong, when if they had asked me what had actually happened, then we could have resolved the fact that nothing had actually happened. Well, I mean, inappropriate, yes, but it still wasn't what he had ended up telling the world that it had happened beyond that. But then when my uncle was over and, ran his entire forearm up against my crotch, when I was like 9, maybe 10, and my mom saw it, and he did it, and then I was just kind of like this, and like afraid to do anything, because last time anybody did anything, it's like I thought I was going to get in trouble, even though that realistically there was nothing I had done in that situation that would have gotten me in trouble. But when my mom called me over to ask if he had touched me, I said no, because I was afraid I was going to get in trouble. Why? Because the last time anything had come up, I had gotten in trouble, and it wasn't for anything that had actually happened, right? So it's like, just like all these... It's like all this toxicity. It's like all the adjacent connections that I've had have been more toxic. Oh, hey, let's just pull you down into the abyss as deep as we can possibly go, right? And, so like seeing the twin flame with the favorable connections and positive and uplifting of other people, it's like, I can absolutely see why there's been that glass ceiling keeping me away from that space at the wrong time, I guess. I mean, because there's... Okay, going back to that point, I have to have the thing up here, the kind of end goal kind of a thing, because I haven't been allowed to learn to dream for myself and to have dreams for myself. And, what would a future that I want look like? And, because I wasn't raised to have that kind of existence. I was raised strictly to continue feeding into the toxic cycle, to allow my toxic grandfather to suck the life out of me and to have some kind of glory because he made a little kid feel like shit about themselves for their entire lives. Because it was when I hit 40 that I finally started setting boundaries and realizing that was the thing I needed to do. So then it's like, literally my entire life went to just appeasing that man and his fucking bullshit. So yeah. The whole point of this time that I'm in now, and the final days of being here, I don't know when I'm going to get out of this place. I don't. What I do know is when it is time, nothing will be able to keep me from going. And I think the universe is just kind of keeping me in the awareness of the fact that it will end, it does need to end, and it is something that I just need to walk away from completely. But like I said, regardless of the fact that I have all these cancer placements that I really want, that home and family is really important to, it's like, not this home, not this family. Because this is like, just because we're related by blood does not mean anything beneficial has come out of this. I mean, yes and no. It has been specifically to teach me the lessons that I will carry into this next part of my life, so I can use what I have learned to benefit others that have been harmed by these same toxic systems in some kind of way. But at the same time, it's still a pain in the ass to get there. It's still been really, really hard. But yeah, I still got to pee, and that didn't make me have to not go anymore. So, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time. See ya.